Today my role is to introduce our work, the work of my group, that as the title shows, if you see it, is focused on sustainable conservation of cultural heritage as a global responsibility. To introduce our work, first of all I would like to explain you our goal. That is to conserve the cultural heritage in a sustainable way throughout the case study of Sichuan Towers in China, connecting the environmental and socio-economical aspects to the touristic development. In our presentation we will consider 4 main points: the environmental aspect, the economical aspect, the socio-political aspect, and the conservation aspect, before relating to the case study of Sichuan, and then relating to the methodological hypothesis. And this is the plan of our presentation, and finally we will approach our conclusion in a very innovative way, because we will have a comparative aspect, giving some examples of other cultural sites around all the world that could be compared with the Chinese one. To face with the core of our presentation, I would underline the mutual dependence that exists between tourism and cultural heritage. As the slide shows, while heritage resources generate and play a key role in tourism and touristic development, tourism has the power to generate funds and to make conservation possible, providing funding and so helping the preservation of a cultural or a natural area. So I now leave the floor to all my other colleagues, Bei Liu from Rome Tor Vergata University, that will explain us Sichuan region, Lisa Corsi and Lorenzo Miccoli, that will talk about the case studies of Sichuan Towers, and then at the end both from Rome Tor Vergata University, and at the end Karolina Łukasiewicz from Jagiellonian University of Poland. Thanks.
The Towers is in the Sichuan province, which is in the southwest of China. It has a large area, which is much bigger than Italy. And in this province, there are big cities as the capital Chengdu, and there are also high mountains, and even some of them are taller than 7,000 meters. And this province is with many ethnic groups. The people of these groups live mainly in West Sichuan and in remote mountains. It's hard for them to communicate with the outside world. Therefore, they keep the original traditions, customs, cultures, and architectural styles.
Sichuan area is very rich in cultural, architectural, and environmental aspects. As you can see from these pictures, tall stone towers like this one can be found all over the region. From historical records, we know that there had been built about 3,000 towers, and some of them can be dated back to 2,000 years ago, so it's a huge cultural heritage that is really worthy of preservation. Nowadays, there are still more than 500 towers, but actually after the tragic earthquake that happened in May, we don't know how many of them are still existing. But what were these towers built for? We have different typologies: watchtowers, boundary towers, beacon towers, village defense towers, and sometimes they were used to store food, for example. Anyway, they're all completely made with natural and local materials such as stones, mud, and timber. And as you can see from this drawing, they're all wide at bottom and narrow at top, with many wooden floors. So towers are scattered all over the region with many different typologies. As you can see from this plane configuration, we have multi-sided shapes, star-shaped, even a shape with 13 angles. And you can easily understand that the more angles a tower has, the more difficult the structure will be. Here you can see some typologies. Sometimes stone towers and local houses are well connected, and this is our typical village in Sichuan area.
let me now talk about that this area has suffered a seismic hazard that was suffered at earthquake in May 12. So I will go to speak about conservation that has to be a multidisciplinary approach with many figures has to be involved in this kind of problems. In the conservation aspect, they can start with a first classification of architectural typologies, and I will go to speak about the innovative techniques that can be a good way to approach this kind of problem. There is a carbon dating analysis by using the laboratory of National Institute of Physics of Florence, and the environmental vibration measurement can be useful to evaluate or to assess the seismic risk of this kind of object.
In this kind of approach, we should take into consideration environmental aspects, socio-political aspects, economical, and then those related to conservation of the monuments. But first of all, what is cultural heritage that we have discussed here? So we can define cultural heritage as intangible and tangible attributes of a society, including the natural heritage, that are inherited from past generation, preserved in the present, and granted for the next generation. And then why is it important to care about the culture of heritage? Well, there are numbers of reasons, but also because it is also a means to achieve a more satisfactory intellectual, emotional, moral, and spiritual existence for human beings. But that's not the only reason. Cultural heritage might generate income for a whole country, because cultural heritage is an element of intellectual capital that belongs to particular society. This intellectual capital can be defined as a capability to create future income. So we can also look at cultural heritage from economical point of view, which could generate some income. And then the concept of sustainability that appears in our presentation, it should be defined as in relation to three areas. It is social, environmental, and economical. That should all be somehow intercorrelated and connected, and it also relates to the idea of sustainable tourism. You have already seen this. This relation between cultural heritage, which generates tourism, and tourism, which provides funds that makes conservation possible. There are some steps in development of the concept of sustainable development, but we'll skip this. And then those particular aspects that should be taken into consideration when preserving cultural heritage in a sustainable way. So first of all, economical aspect. So to develop benchmarking between the national tourism administration or organization and the local economical institution. That's the crucial idea when it comes to economy. And then, of course, we should be aware of some positive and negative results of tourism development. So when it comes to positive one, is of course economic development, life condition improvement, element opportunities, employment opportunities, infrastructure, culture exchanges, generating new segments, acknowledgement of local culture outside in the area. But there are of course also some negative sides like alienation and loss of cultural identity, negative environmental impact, displacement of local inhabitants, cultural contamination, and it might be also damage of cultural heritage. And then, yeah. Okay, so then we have already discussed this, how it can be in case of Sichuan. Then some socio-political aspects should be considered, like history, political situation of the country where the heritage is, the basic statistic on population, language, information on ethnic group, religion, and then also the environmental aspects should be considered, like the promotion of environmental sensitivity, the use of local market materials when preserving the monuments, the analysis of the architectural capability.
We have to conclude.
Okay, and
the value of your research is not determined by the minutes of your presentation. You know? It's the substance that we have understood. We are not a child, you know.
Okay, so here you can just see the strategies toward sustainable preservation of tourism. Well, it is somehow discussed in our paper.
Yeah, sure.
Conclusions.
Your paper, by the way, is available on the internet, you know.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So to conclude, cultural heritage is a bridge between population and economic source for sustainable development. And then just last information, that this kind of, as it has already been said at the beginning, this kind of monuments, like even the towers we were discussing in case of Sichuan, appears all around the world. In some cases, like for example in San Gimignano in Italy, they are well preserved, while in the others, like in Chechnya in Caucasus, they are very much destroyed and desperately need preservation. So, thank you very much.